Hey everyone, welcome back to G7 Studio. Have you ever wondered how quickly you can achieve a clean portrait professional retouch in Photoshop? In today's tutorial, I will show you my simple retouch workflow in less than 10 minutes. So for today's tutorial's video, this is one of the raw image we're going to be using as practice. So if you need any of these images, I'll be dropping a link on my description. You can go there, download, and you can get this image to use for practice. So take note, on this particular video, we're not doing anything about color grading. We are only working on the skin. And so for those that used to have a lot of pictures to edit with limited time, this is one of the fastest strategies you can use to edit your pictures, and they will still come out very well with good textures. If you want more of these kind of videos, kindly subscribe to our channel, kindly like, and make sure you turn on post notification so that you can be notified anytime we upload a new video. Now let's get straight into the editing process. So the first thing to do is to duplicate your background layer 2 times. So you name the lower one as low and the upper one as high. It can be low frequency, it can be high frequency, depending on which name works for you. So after you duplicate and rename them, you come back to the low layer, you come to your filter, you click on blur, Gaussian blur. You can use any of the radius from 1 to 10. But for this video, I'll be using around 5. I think 5 or 4 is okay for me for this video. So after then, you come to your upper layer, which is the high. You come to your image. You click on apply image. Then you make sure you change the layer option to the low. Then you click on invert. You change your blending mode to hard. Then you put the opacity in 100. Your scale should be in 2. Then click on OK. Then you come back to your blending option here. Then you change it to linear light. Then you come back to your low frequency. You pick your brush, your mixer brush. Then while you pick your mixer brush, the settings you want to use, you can copy my settings here for my mixer brush. Or if you have a setting you use that works fine for you, that's good. But if you don't have a mixer brush settings, you can go with my mixer brush ratio numbers that are up here. They work perfectly for me. Also, make sure your brush is always on clean. You need a clean brush. Also for the brush, make sure you're always on the hardness of your brush is always on 0, and then make sure you pick a very soft brush. Make sure you are on the low frequency, and then you zoom in. For me, I like to off my high frequency so that I can have a blurry image before I use my mixer brush. So basically, there's a technique behind using mixer brush, which is highlight to highlight, shadow to shadow. What does it mean? When you are mixing, you want to mix highlight to highlight, and you want to mix shadow to shadow. So you want to make the shadow part of your image, you want to mix it together in the dimension in which your image is going, and then you want to mix your highlight in the dimension your highlight is going. You don't want to mix your highlight inside the shadow, or mix the shadow inside the highlight. If you do that, that is going to disfigure your image, and it's going to change your light setup and how you snapped your image, and you might just have a very bad retouching. But for this technique, you just do highlight to highlight, shadow to shadow. You paint all over the image, and then you make sure you reduce your brush size to how big where you are retouching is. So if you're on an highlight, you can reduce the brush size to the size that will fit into the highlight area. And if you're mixing the shadow area, you just want to reduce your brush to how big the shadow area is. So basically, that's all you do around the image. You do highlight to highlight, you do your mixing properly. You can take your time. So that is how you paint throughout your image, highlight to highlight, shadow to shadow. You paint properly, and then make sure you subscribe to the channel. We'll be dropping more videos like this, how to do high-end retouching, how to do teeth whitening, how to do background manipulation, and all of that is going to be dropping on this channel. So make sure you're following. And as you can see, even before we finish retouching, even before owning the high frequency, the image is already popping out already, even with how blur it is while retouching. So you just need to paint through gently. Pay attention to details. I like to highlight shadow to shadow. Don't mix them up so you don't disfigure your image or spoil your light settings. So now we're going to put on our high frequency and see how far we've gone with the retouching. So this technique is actually very fast. In less than a few minutes, you are done retouching in less than a few minutes. So if you have multiple pictures, this technique is like the fastest way for you to retouch. So let's put on our high frequency, see how beautiful the pictures look in less than 5 minutes. So put them in a group, you highlight the two layers, then you Ctrl G to put them in a group. So that's before and after, then you march down. So after that, I'll Ctrl J, I will desaturate, I will high pass. How do I desaturate? I click on Ctrl Shift U to desaturate, then come to high pass, put in like 2 or 3, then you pick overlay blending option just to add a little bit of texture to the image. Then you can reduce your CD before, CD after, then you can reduce your opacity if you feel like it's too much. So you march down or flatten image. So after then, see our outcome. So let's take another example. This is one of the pictures I took from the studio earlier today. So I use 4x5 for cropping Instagram standard. So let's get straight into it. So firstly, for these pictures, I would like to add a little bit of sharpness to it, which means a little bit of texture before I start retouching. So Ctrl J, Ctrl Shift U, desaturate, then come to filter, come to high pass. Then you don't need too much, maybe around 2 or 3. Then you change the blend option to overlay, then play around the opacity. So that's the first thing I'll do here. Then now we merge. So we are following the same process we followed before. Duplicate the layer 2 times, rename the first one low, then the second layer, rename it as high. Then you can Ctrl J on the first one. While you hold on Ctrl, click on the second one to highlight both of them. So you can Ctrl G to put them in a group. So now you click on your low layer, then you go to filters, you go to blur, you click on Gaussian blur. You can use maybe around 4 to 5, but you can pick any ratio from 1 to 10, but for me I like to stay around 4 or 5. And after then you click on your high layer, you come to image, apply image. Then this option will pop up. You change your layer to low layer. You change it to low. Then you change your blending option. You leave it at hard. You click on invert as well. Then you put your opacity 100. You scale at 2. And then you change this blending option to linear light. Then you come to your low layer. You pick your mixer brush. And then you brush in. I like to off my high frequency. I like to brush while the image is kind of blurry. So we just paint through the same way we did on the first example that we had. So after we're done painting through the skin, you turn on your high frequency back. You see the magic we made. So see the before, see the after, before, after, before, after. So you can reduce the opacity of the retouching. Depends on how you want your picture to come out. So for me, I think I'm okay with this. So I can just reduce the opacity like to 90%, or I leave it at 100%. The way it is. So one more thing is I will try to remove the blemishes. I'll come to my high frequency. I'll pick my clone stamp. Then I'll clone on a particular part. Then I'll click on the blemish I want to remove, so that the part I cloned on can have effect on where I clicked on. So like that, I'll just pick through. If you want to clone, you press down your hot, then you pick the part, then you click on the blemish it's going to remove. So we're done with that. So mash down and we have a good and nice retouched image. So I might want to add a little bit of texture to the image. I'll Ctrl J, then I'll Ctrl Shift U to desaturate. I'll go to my filters, then I'll pick high pass, I'll put it 2, then I'll change my blend options to overlay, then check the before and after. So one more thing you might want to add, this depends on how you want your image to look like. I don't always use it. So is the portraiture. So I duplicate, Ctrl J, then I click on portraiture, and then I just go with the settings. You can copy my settings, or you can go with your own different number, just play around it and check how well it's going to come out. The main reason why I use this is just to cool down the tone of my picture, basically the face texture, just to cool it down a little bit, and then I'll play with the opacity, either reduce it or leave it the way it is. So looking at this, you see we already have a perfect and beautiful retouched image, less than 10 minutes. So it is the fastest method you see out there. This is the fastest method. So if you have a whole lot of pictures, I would advise you go with this method. So that's the before, that's the after. Just a little recap. For your mixer brush, anytime you want to use your mixer brush, make sure you are on the right settings. It is very, very, very important. Make sure you're on the right settings. So what's the right settings? It is, make sure your brush is always on clean brush. Make sure your hardness is always on 0. And make sure you're using a soft brush, a soft round brush. Make sure that is what you're using. And you can copy my settings. If you have any other settings, you can try it. But these are the most important settings for your mixer brush. And that's a wrap. We have completed the retouching process in under 10 minutes. In the next video, we'll cover color grading, color enhancements, and probably talk about how to use Lightroom. If you enjoyed this video, hit the like button, subscribe. See you in our next class.